All right, let's talk about Edgar Allan Poe. But we're not just going to read The Raven. Oh no, we're going to step inside it. Because The Raven isn't just a poem, it's a prison perfectly designed to trap a soul in a state of endless despair. And today, we're going to figure out how he built it.
And I mean that literally. This thing isn't just some creepy story about a bird. It's an emotional trap, and it's built with incredible precision. Every single word, every beat of its rhythm, it's like another bar on the window. Poe's goal? To lock the narrator inside, and maybe, just maybe, us too.
So how exactly did he pull this off? Well, we're going to look at his blueprint, piece by piece. We'll start with the overall architecture of despair, then dive into the sound of grief. After that, we'll see the trap of reason, explore the ghost of Lenore, get caught in the circular prison, and finally face a permanent shadow.
Okay, so first up, the architecture of despair. To get this, you have to understand Poe's master plan, this groundbreaking idea he had called the unity of effect. And trust me, this concept didn't just define the poem, it basically changed the game for horror writing.
So what is this unity of effect? It's simple, but it's genius. The idea is that nothing in the story is there by accident. Every single piece, the characters, the setting, even the rhythm, has to work towards one single emotional goal. Think about it. Before Poe, Gothic horror was all about huge, spooky castles and ghosts rattling chains. But Poe, with this idea, showed everyone that you don't need all that. He proved that true horror, the deepest kind, could be found in a single claustrophobic room. He basically invented psychological terror, shifting the focus from external monsters to the horror inside our own heads. And for The Raven, that one single calculated goal is absolute permanent despair.
All right, let's start laying the bricks of this prison. And the very foundation, the first thing Poe puts down, is its sound. Because this poem isn't just meant to be read, it's meant to be felt through its relentless, hypnotic music. He uses something called a trochaic meter. Now, Poe chose this very, very deliberately. A trochee is a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed one. Dum, da. Dum, da. It creates this heavy, falling rhythm. It's the sound of exhaustion, of something constantly dragging you down, line after line. Just listen to the first line, "Once upon a midnight dreary." You can feel that, right? That dum-da beat. It's not just words. It's a physical sensation. It's designed to mimic the narrator's own downward spiral into madness. It's like Poe is making you feel the weight of this grief in your own chest. It's what some have called a claustrophobia of the soul. And he doesn't stop there. He layers that meter with all these other sonic tricks, heavy alliteration, internal rhymes that are almost hypnotic, repeating vowel sounds. They all weave together to cast this unbreakable spell. This is what I mean when I say he basically weaponized the English language. He created this musicality of sorrow that's designed to sneak right past your rational brain and hit you straight in the emotions. It's a trap made of sound. Okay, so our senses are trapped by the sound. Now let's look at the next part of the prison, the intellectual trap. This is how Poe goes after our minds. And the key to this is where the Raven chooses to sit. It doesn't just land on a bookshelf or a chair. No, it lands upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. Pallas, Athena, the goddess of wisdom and reason. It's an incredible piece of symbolism, isn't it? Reason is literally put up on a pedestal, silent, watching, about to be completely overwhelmed by this creature of pure, irrational darkness.
And this sets up the poem's central battle. You've got the scholar's mind on one side. He's trying to reason his way out of pain, searching through his books, his forgotten lore. This is a classic example of what you might call the intellectualization of grief. But on the other side, you have the Raven's reality. It's not logical. It's not something you can study. It's just a raw, unblinking truth that offers only one single, devastating answer.
And that's the whole point Poe is making. The narrator's scholarship, his reason, his logic, it's all just useless armor against this kind of sorrow. Poe is arguing that some grief is like a force of nature, like entropy. It's a kind of chaos that logic and reason just can't touch. In fact, it will always, always consume them.
But why? Why is this grief so powerful, so all-consuming? What's the fuel for this fire? Well, that brings us to the ghost haunting the center of this prison cell, the lost Lenore. See, Lenore isn't just a character who died. In the world of the poem, she's more of a symbol. She represents everything good and beautiful and hopeful, a radiant lost kingdom. And it's her absence that's so important. It creates this massive vacuum, this perfect void that the raven's darkness can just rush into and fill completely. And Poe is a master at this. He makes her a kind of linguistic ghost. Her name just echoes through the stanzas, constantly reminding the narrator and us of what's gone. It's a really interesting contrast to another of his famous poems, Annabel Lee. In that poem, the narrator also loses a beautiful woman, but he responds by creating this beautiful myth, this fairy tale of eternal devotion. He claims a spiritual victory over death. But in The Raven, there's no victory. The memory of Lenore becomes a weapon the narrator turns on himself, leading him right into this state of what you could call psychological stagnation.
Okay, so we have the sound, the assault on reason, and the ghost of a lost love. Now let's see how Poe melts them all together to lock the door for good. This is how the building becomes a truly inescapable circular prison.
And this is where you really see Poe's total control. No matter how you analyze this poem, you end up in the same place. If you look at it from a literary angle, the sounds create this hypnotic, depressive state. Look at it psychologically, and you see that claustrophobia of the soul. And if you look at it from a scholarly perspective, it's all about the final defeat of reason. Every road leads to the same destination. It's the unity of effect in action, perfectly executed. But that raises a really important question, right? If this prison is so perfect for the narrator, how does Poe keep us, the readers, from just leaving? I mean, we can close the book. So how does he make sure the spell isn't broken?
The answer is brilliant, and it's terrifying. He does it by making the narrator an active participant in his own torture. The narrator starts asking these questions, these awful, masochistic questions. He asks if he'll ever find relief. He asks if he'll see Lenore in heaven. He knows what the bird is going to say. He knows the answer is nevermore. But he keeps asking anyway, driving the knife in deeper himself. And we can't look away.
And that's the final turn of the key in the lock. By the end, the narrator and his suffering are completely fused. He says his soul, from the raven's shadow on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore. It's over. There's no separation anymore. The man is the shadow, the soul is the despair.
So, let's step back. We've seen the whole prison. We've seen how it was built. What's the final takeaway from this perfect architecture of despair? What does it all mean in the end?
Well, the poem isn't really a story with a beginning, middle, and end. It's more like a single frozen image, a parable of total integration, where a man merges with his grief. Poe creates this feeling of mournful and never-ending remembrance. Time has stopped. The grieving process didn't run its course. It just failed. And all that's left is the shadow. And this focus on creating a pure aesthetic experience, this beauty of melancholy, was hugely influential. It inspired entire artistic movements in Europe, like the Symbolists and the Decadents, who believed this was the highest purpose of art.
And so we end up right back where we started, inside that suffocating room, that perfect prison. But there's a huge difference now. At the beginning of the poem, the despair was a silent feeling inside the narrator's head. But by the end, the darkness has a voice. And the truly terrifying part is the realization that this voice is never, ever going to leave. And that's Poe's ultimate legacy. He gave the shadow a voice. And every single Gothic horror story written since then, in some small way, carries an echo of that raven's nevermore.